right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is the second gathering of Tradition Talks, conversations on heritage, equity, and preservation, hosted by the Association for Cultural Equity, also called ACE. My name is Sarah Bryan, and I'm the executive director of ACE. And we are really pleased to be joined tonight by Landon Bryant. Landon, hey.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
And Landon, I've been talking my families and coworkers ears off about this for weeks, so I'm so happy that that the day is here.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. I'm excited about it too. I've been talking about it for a little bit.
Well, just before we get into the conversation, I just want to say a few words about ACE, the Association for Cultural Equity. For those not familiar with us, we are an organization founded 40 years ago by the legendary folklorist and ethnomusicologist Alan Lomax. His career spanned pretty much almost the whole 20th century from the 30s on, and recorded people and traditions all over the world. But some of the best known work that he did took place in Mississippi. He made the first recordings of Muddy Waters, I believe the first of Mississippi Fred McDowell, and famously recorded the music of incarcerated people at, the notorious Parchman Farm prison. So it's not an exaggeration to say that the artists he worked with in Mississippi changed the course of music for the whole world. And Ace is really honored to steward those recordings. Also feels especially appropriate that tonight we're talking with Landon Bryant, who is himself a native son of Mississippi. And you're in Laurel, correct?
I'm in Laurel, yes.
Okay. So the Tradition Talks is a platform to present the work of people who are doing cultural heritage documentation in new and innovative ways, which very much describes Landon's work. So many of you joining us tonight are already followers of his social media, so you're familiar with his videos. But for those of you who are new to them, I thought I'd just show a couple examples right quick before we get into the conversation. Landon has risen to fame for videos that describe and explain some of the traditions and quirks that make the American South so distinctive, from language to manners to holiday customs to omens and superstitions to congealed salads. And out of the scores of videos, I've chosen two here to play just to give you all a sense of his style. These are two of my favorites, and each is about a minute and a half long. First one is about the phrase "do what now?" And the second is about how Southern etiquette norms can cause traffic jams. So bear with me just a moment while I figure out the screen share here.
Do what now? Just mean. Say that again. Could you say that again? Do what now? In the place of repeat yourself means a little bit more. It's got a little bit more behind it. It means pause, reflect on what you've just said, and then say it back to me. Almost a little bit of a dare. It's not saying I dare you to say that again, but it almost sort of is saying, think about that one more time and say that to my face one more time. But it doesn't have to be aggressive. It means I'm questioning it. I'm not necessarily saying you're not telling the truth. I'm just saying this whole thing is some sort of shabacle that needs some further explanation. Do what now indicates we need more. The tone of voice when you hear do what now determines, am I being questioned or is the concept being questioned? And that comes in the tone of the delivery. Do what now? That's a little bit more directed towards the person receiving it. But do what? That's a little bit more about the concept. The tonal difference is there. It's very specific. So if you hear someone say to you, do what, in any form, it just simply means stop, pause, take assessment of what we're doing, saying, how we are existing in time and space, and then come back and let's present that again. If after we've reassessed it, we still feel the need to present the information, it just means pause and think. So do what now? How do you use do what now? And has it been used on you? What else does it mean when you say do what now? Have you experienced a good do what now out in the wild? Let's discuss it. Let's discuss yielding in the South. A good way to trap a Southerner is to have a bunch of us show up all at once at the four-way stop sign. This is tricky because in the South, we're in a competition to see who is the most polite. The most polite thing I can do is allow you to go first. This is a problem when everybody here is in direct competition to be Mr. or Miss Hospitality. And we all very much are. So everybody gets to mouth and this is what you'll see. My town got clever and decided to do something about it, so they installed roundabouts. This has created a whole other issue because for Southerners, the polite thing to do is to yield. Roundabouts require you to go. So now we're all yielding at the roundabout and we have successfully turned it into a four-way stop without stop signs. We all want to yield, so nobody's gonna go. I don't care though, I love the roundabouts. They are so fun. Same thing applies for entering and exiting buildings. If there's a door involved, I want to hold it. We all want to hold the door for each other, but only one of us can. Even worse is if I get to the door and you're still a little bit more than 30 feet away from me, we've got to decide, am I staying here and holding this door for you, forcing you to speed up, or am I just going to walk in and be as rude as can be? And we both just want each other to feel acknowledged and seen, but despite our best efforts, we have now trapped ourselves in a tiny little southern purgatory of our own making.
Well, let me ask you first, just tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from.
Well, I am from Laurel, Mississippi. This is just a small, regular town. And I have been an art teacher for the last little bit in life. I've been was a teacher for almost 10 years. And I am married to my wife of 12 years, and we have a 10-year-old little boy, and we have just a quaint little life down here. And so really, and then I started talking too much, and here we are.
So when I first discovered your Instagram account, which is how I know you, you already had 250,000 followers, but can you tell us a bit about the path that brought you to what you're doing now? And yeah.
It's been very wild, like the wildest thing. I don't I don't even know how it happened. Honestly, I sort of do. So I have always enjoyed things like this, and I've always been a performer in theater and like singing, all that kind of stuff. I love that kind of thing. My wife is an actress and a singer and all those kinds of things. So we have always enjoyed that side of stuff. And so when social media came about like this, we've always enjoyed those sides of social media. And I posted a video a long time ago, like that went pretty viral, of her actually being a character Belle, or not actually Belle because Disney would get mad, but a character that looked like that character, to go read to somebody for their birthday. One of her students, she's a sped teacher, and it was like a Friday night, and she like sighed really heavily and sat down, but she was in this beautiful Belle costume, and I caught that moment, and it went viral, and it was one of the first videos that I posted. So that kind of made me think about it in a way that like, maybe I could like do this, but I never really took it seriously, and I was just doing trends and stuff. And then fast forward, I'd like to say that I was talking too much at my wife, and her eyes kind of like glazed over, you know. And she was like, you should tell your stories to the internet. But basically it was the sum of that conversation. And so I started talking to the internet, and I have gone from less than 10,000 followers to wherever I am now. now. And it's just been really mind-blowing because all that's happened since like March of this year, like February, March of this year. So it's been a roller coaster, really, really, really a roller coaster. And I'm very grateful, but I'm also very mind blown and kind of like, that's kind of how I feel.
Well, every time I look at your account, there's, thousands more people who've joined. I mean, I think it was 376,000 yesterday. So probably,
Just wild. And those numbers, they stop meaning something after a while. And I'm like grateful for them, obviously, but it still like doesn't click what that means. Like it's hard to register how many people that is, viewing you. It's just a whole exercise in my brain, I feel like.
So I've noticed that your videos seem to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So for me, what appeals so much is the combination of serious cultural documentation and commentary, but in such an engaging and entertaining way. Others seem to come to your videos, primarily for the humor, others for the cultural questions. And I do notice in the comments a lot of people from other parts of the country or who've moved from elsewhere in the US to the South are using it like really directly as a field guide to understanding what all these nuances of speech and manners mean. How do you yourself describe your work? Like what are your primary intentions first and foremost? And
I love to hear that so much, and I love to see how many people connect to it. That's my favorite part of this. And if you haven't viewed what I'm doing, the best part of it is not the things I say. I say ridiculous things, but the people and the comments that it pulls out it's just a treasure trove of information and of interactions, and it's really a beautiful thing. It's my favorite part of this whole thing. But I wish I could say that I set out to do this and was like, this was the goal, but it's evolved over time. And I like kind of realized what I had at some point. I don't know when it was, but at some point at first it was just me talking. And then I think I told a story of Walmart High School. We went to Walmart High School. Our school got blown down by a tornado. Nobody was hurt. And they put us in the old Walmart building, because we just got a new super Walmart. So I told that story, but I said things like Fix and Two and Mike could over the course of a few videos and without thinking. And then people were asking me like, well, what do you mean in that kind of a situation? So it started into the discussions. And so then we started discussing those things, like let's discuss Fix and Two, and let's discuss Sweet Tea, and let's discuss y'all. And that's what it is now. It's this giant discussion. And so once I realized that was a possibility, I think it just changed so much about how I view it. And it's turned into a whole different thing. Like at first I was literally just talking and trying to just be funny on the internet. And now it's turned into this community of people that I think is very important, because it is a place where like everybody is welcome to have their opinion. So instead of like fighting about politics, we can fight about mayonnaise. And it's like a way to heal our divisions in a sense, in a way. Like I understand we're not doing like the heavy stuff and all that, but everybody being at the table is kind of turned into the goal for me. Like all of us there in this conversation, seeing each other as people, even with differences, is kind of turned into the point. And then on top of it, I have a whole degree in history from USM, and I didn't mean to be like using the history degree in this way. But I think what it is and why it relates to so many people is, one, our culture is very fascinating, but two, I've taught 4-year-olds through 6th graders for the past like 10 years. I've had to learn how to speak to everybody in the room and being inclusive of all levels of people. So I feel like, without thinking, that's like my natural way of engaging people, just because of what I used to do. So I feel like that might have something to do with it as well. But I wish I had like a clear path to what has happened here, but I certainly do not.
well, I think that the fact that you're an educator and have been for years really comes through. And especially in like how you end so many videos with basically this invitation to people to come to those comments and say, how do you do this? What's because I mean, you're making a point that well, the South is a really diverse place, and a lot of our customs are the same across like racial, ethnic, socioeconomic groups, but then there's sometimes really big differences.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that you acknowledge that, and people start, like you say, start talking about what they do in Alabama, North Carolina, where I am, Montana, Sweden. I mean, it's
Yes.
some of the similarities are amazing, and the differences are really fascinating. What feedback do you get from like people of other backgrounds within the South?
Well,
regarding how
that's really fascinating to me, because the first time it happened, and this is what I'm saying, it's just gotten so much bigger than what I thought it has. And I've learned so much through the whole process, in little things like here where I am, we've always called lightning bugs fireflies. But when I made a video about that, just as sure as I could, saying that was the Southern thing to call them, it was fireflies. So many people were like, we don't call them that, they're lightning bugs. And I was like, oh, some of y'all are just a county over from me and we're saying different things. So I had to even like I questioned myself and had to go ask everybody like what they call them. And it was fireflies. So there's differences, even hyper local differences. And I think that's so interesting and fun. I like this. That's my favorite part of this is it's revealing those things to me as well, just by like having this lens on it. So it's been an interesting journey learning about all this myself, even though I'm like immersed in it. It's like looking at it from a different way. And also just the people from all over the place have gotten involved in this. And it's very interesting to me. I've noticed similarities with familial structure across so many different cultures. The ladies are running the show, whether we're openly acknowledging it or not, it seems like in a lot of these things, people relate to that. And people relate to just the way things are so community based, I think, where regardless of where you are. And that's been really beautiful to me to see. But it's really blows my mind when people from around the world say stuff or come up to me in public. They'll be like, I'm from New Zealand, from France, and I just can't believe that it reaches that far and that y'all would watch this. So it's exciting.
Or, this is the sort of, I'm a folklorist, and this is the sort of thing we dream about being able to engage everybody in and, find out all of these traditions all at once. I mean, like you say, the comments are just is incredible gold mine of cultural.
A gold mine. Somebody even today was like, have you documented these comments in case the internet goes down? And I was like, oh, panicked. Somebody's got to do that. So yes, it really is. The comments really are so special. You can learn about cultures from around the world just by browsing through the comments and seeing their commentary on the things that we do alike and don't do alike, even within the US, but also literally around the world. It's really, really something.
I was going to ask you about that myself. Are you archiving them somehow? If you're not, please do.
I know. Literally today, I've been in a panic about that. Like, oh, how is this going to happen? We screenshot this. We got to download all the data from Meta. We're going to figure that out for sure. I definitely have backups, so we'll see.
Good. I was, this kind of tradition I think is often wrongly associated with the past. I mean, you think about things that are passed down, and because they're passed down are old, doesn't necessarily mean they're past. These are very much living traditions that you talk about. And I'm as you being somebody who has a child and has worked with young people for a long time, how do you see them engaging with these traditions? Are they saying might could and used to could? Are they looking at persimmons in October, November to see if it's going to snow in January?
Well, I sure hope so. No, I mean, my kid is not looking at persimmons. He's looking at the Xbox. But I think that's all generations. And I guess if I have a hope for that and for this account, I know it connects with people of all ages and with kids, even like with younger kids. I've had people come up to me, and everybody from the grandmother down to their down to their daughter had a favorite video. Like their daughter, like one of the families, their daughter loved the hair bow video because we got big old bows down here, and I just love that so much because it's like, even if people aren't walking around saying might could in today's language, maybe they will, but maybe it reminds you of a time when people did, and it could make even kids who didn't experience that with their grandparents get a little taste of what that language and what that culture felt like, because it is and was a very special language and culture. And sure, a lot of the things are like, I lean into them, and they're really, I'm talking about like my great grandmother and my grandmother and those kinds of people. But it is still the culture to today. And the thing about it that I'm learning is that we get to decide what the culture is. And so I hope to bring the good things that I remember from those generations forward and let them be the future again, because they're beautiful things. They're little things that I don't think I realized how beautiful our language and our use of language is, and how our connectedness and the concept of community here is just, it's just so special. It's folk art, all of it's just such a special thing. And now I get to like examine that every day, and that is really, really something.
I love the concept of, our being able to decide what, you know, who we are, what we do going forward in these traditions. Um, how do you see yourself pushing back against stereotypes about the South? I mean, this is a region that, yeah, a lot of people have misconceptions about, and it's such a complicated place. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's just, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to, but here we are, and I think it just speaks to, first of all, you have to be genuine, and I can only be this. I'm not doing this to be like a beacon. I didn't mean to be like representing everybody. It just turned into this sort of situation. But first of all, stereotypes about the South, like barefoot in the grocery store, but we're not barefoot because there's stickers and fire ants in the yard. So it's like a whole thing that we've got to discuss and explain. But I understand where that comes from, and I understand why that comes from. And it also explains why we might suppress our use of y'all, or might suppress our use of used to could in business settings and public settings. And so I hope what I'm doing makes people more confident in using those things in a way. Like, and I've had people message me saying like, I used it in a business meeting the other day, or I said all y'all in the meeting and felt good about it. And I hope that we do feel good about it, because again, it's a special culture. But
And in some ways, some of these things become current in new ways, like y'all and all y'all. Nowadays when we're looking for um, gender neutral, gender inclusive terms, y'all works. I mean, you
right,
don't
I
want to
mean, it
say
couldn't be
you
better.
guys or ladies. I mean,
It
y'all.
couldn't be better, and we didn't even mean to. And I think that's another thing that our spirit here is, is one of it's it's community. Like, inclusive is a hard word to say about the South in general, because I
Mhm.
understand that that's not the truth. But on a microscopic level, when you get down to the streets and the neighborhoods, it's including everybody and being a community. And I think that's something to shine a spotlight on.
Yeah, something I think about a lot is how kind of fraught working with Southern cultures can be because of those things. And I mean, that brings me to sort of uncomfortable topics that I would love to ask you to weigh in on. It's this it's sort of a delicate role of um documenting and celebrating aspects of Southern culture without being perceived as minimizing or denying the fact that so much of Southern history is trauma, racism, very dark things. And there's also for like, and I'm describing myself here. I think I'm describing you as well, a white
Yeah,
Southern
definitely.
progressive. Um, it's this interesting bind, because there are people in our lives, friends and family members whom we love and respect as people, but who hold prejudices that that we can't align ourselves with. And so, but what I'm trying to say, how do we advance a vision of an inclusive South without excluding or marginalizing the people who disagree with us?
Isn't that the dance that we're doing? That is the line that we
Mhm.
are dancing on. And it is very like, it's a line to dance on. Here's where I am at this point with it. I want everybody to be at this table with us, right? So like you said, it's very important not to exclude a large group of people, because it would be easy to exclude a lot of people. And I think that is kind of the like if there is a challenge and if there is a thing that's the responsibility that I have is to keep us at that table. So that is deciding the topics and like swaying the way that it's going. And for me, that is going to be focusing on the things that are positive from the culture, right? And then as it grows, leading people to places where they can understand, like places where people are discussing those things. Like I think that you'll get that through where I am as well, so we can all eventually, but first, the first step is for us to all see each other at the table. And right now, the way media is consumed is very divisive. It's either or. There's no in between, there's no space at the table for people to just have conversations. But in real life, we are at the dinner table and we are at the Sunday dinner table. And there you don't come out and talk about topics that are divisive at the dinner table. That's not the Southern thing to do, right? So I'm kind of viewing this as this giant dinner table where we are all here and we're all going to be seen and we're all going to be acknowledged and we're all going to be kind to each other. And that's the point right now. So there's definitely like things to steer away from. And I mean, if in an ideal world, I would get to just preach to everybody everything that I think. But again, I think the point of this is to have us all together. And I think that's the way forward with progress. I think that's the first step. We've got to see each other as people. And right now, I think that's one thing I've discovered the most is the people in my comments are people who disagree with each other and disagree with me and I disagree with, and it's turned into a respectful place. And I think that people are like yearning for that in a way. Like the internet is turned into this place where you've got to come out harshly and intensely, and just the intense engagement on my stuff tells me that people are looking for community and they're looking for a place where they can, say their opinions, again, like about mayonnaise, but it doesn't have to be so divisive and so intense all the time. So a lot to say. I think the goal of this particular account is to have us at the table, and then we build from there.
Because, inclusion is something that a lot of people preach but don't live, and I think what you're doing really does model inclusion.
Model and inclusion, and even though like the terminology, like if there's certain terms that I know that I cannot say, even though I fully like agree with those terms, and even their definitions are not what people perceive their definitions to be. But I think it's like we have to be considerate of who's going to hear those words and what they think of those words. And that's a whole thing. It's like a whole thing about language in itself, like just down to word choice. And then again, specific regional, what words mean in different regions. It's really something. Words are really powerful, turns out.
Well, we have already talked about a lot of the things that some of the questions we've received are asking, and so I do want to start mixing in some of the participants' questions because we've gotten a lot.
Glad to.
And so here's a very and let me invite people also to submit new questions in the chat here. We'll keep an eye out for them, but. We got a question from Patty who wants to know, which do you prefer, mustard greens or turnip greens?
I'm a turnip greens kind of a guy, but hey, I'll not turn down either, especially if there's some pepper sauce to go with them. The real question is, are the greens vegetarian or not? And what does that even mean?
Just being a vegetable doesn't make something vegetarian.
Not in the least.
April, who I happen to know is in Georgia, asks, how much time does it take you to prepare and execute one of your videos? Or one of your posts?
Yeah, it can take anywhere from like 30 minutes to 4 hours. It depends on how stubborn I feel that day. And if I plan ahead. So what I've been trying to do lately, and I'm trying to get better about time management, is when I'm on a day where I am like feeling it and have so many ideas and thoughts, is to just batch film a lot. But my process is that I just sit down in front of this camera after bothering my wife about what she thinks I should do for a while and then disagreeing entirely. I'll come and sit down here in front of this camera and I just talk to this phone for however long that is. It can be 2 minutes or it can be 7 minutes. And then I just cut those down. Like I cut down to like 3 minutes for TikTok, a minute and a half for Instagram. And then the longest version after I cut out pauses and ums and right and you knows and all those things, which I don't do much editing, but I do like to cut out those things that annoy me, then that goes on to YouTube. So it's just that's the process. It's pretty straightforward. It takes me a long time to edit the captions because they don't speak Southern at all. Writing the captions is pretty easy by that point, but it is a pretty straightforward process. I wish I could say I'm very good about planning ahead of time and being ready, but it kind of has to be like, there's got to be something going on for me to like want to plan ahead. So I'm trying to get better at that, but it can be anywhere from like 30 minutes to a few hours, just depending on how off topic I get. Like sometimes I like really know what I want to say, and sometimes I'm all over the place, but I know there's like snippets within that 5 or 6 minutes of nonsense, and I know I can pull that out, and that takes a while, but I've gotten better at it as time goes on, but it's certainly not, y'all would be so disappointed at how not professional this situation is. It is not like high tech or like somebody knows what they're doing. That's not the case.
Can you give us a preview of what's coming next, or is that
Ooh, what's
subjects? Yeah.
Okay, well, we're in high into the holiday seasons, and
Yeah.
we're gonna be having a Thanksgiving sides showdown, which I love to do that. That's so fun. I did it with desserts, and it was just hilarious. Like to turn desserts into a March Madness style bracket. We're doing that with Thanksgiving sides. We've already got our nominations in. They were outrageous. It's gonna be very exciting. But then, like the general holidays, I am so excited about Christmas nostalgia, and I can talk about pretty much anything, but that's gonna be so fun. Talk about holiday nostalgia. I think that's gonna be so exciting. But besides just topics, there's exciting things in the works. I just launched this line that you see here with a luxury brand in New York City that's lingua franca, and like I have no business being involved in things like that. And here we are, and I think it's doing really well, and that's exciting. And get into a book eventually. It's the whole thing.
Where can we find these
Well,
sweaters?
these sweaters will be at our own linguafrancaNYC.com, but you can also find them on my page if you want to. And they are luxury brands. It's like not prices I'm used to, but I worked it down, and 10% of the proceeds are going to the domestic abuse shelter here in Mississippi. So I love that very much. That's
Right.
really fun. I can't believe I get to promote this place in that way. It blows my mind. But the book will be out in 2025, so that's exciting.
Well, that answers one of the questions that one of the participants had, which is, are you working on a book?
I am. I have worked through the process. I have a really great literary agent that actually Erin Napier got me in touch with her. She's the star of HGTV's Hometown, and we live in the same town. I've been so fortunate to have her guide me through those kinds of things, and went through the negotiating process with all the publishing houses, and that is wild. The literary world is wild, and ended up going with Running Press, which is an imprint of Hachette. So it's going to be very fun. It's going to be called Bless Your Heart. It's for us. So it's going to be exciting, but I'm just so proud that places like a luxury brand in New York City wants to associate with us. Like it's this culture, and I think that's really wonderful. Even if the prices are out of what would be my budget, I think it's great for us to be seen in those spaces that aren't traditionally held for people from South Mississippi, because again, barefoot in the grocery store, right? So I think it's really fun to get to do those things, and it's all exciting, but it is like a roller coaster. It really feels like we just went to Dollywood for a partnership with them, and she has a lot of roller coasters that launch you. They like launch you, and I feel that way like every day lately. Like I've not stopped launching since we got off those roller coasters. But I'm very grateful, and I'm very glad.
How is your family participating, or are they, what's this like for them?
Well, my wife is mainly helping me do all this. Like she should be the one in front of the camera. Really, it should be her. She has the degree in broadcast journalism and all that stuff. But it's turned into this, so she has just like really taken charge of like managing all this and getting me going. And also she's the brains behind a lot of it. So she basically it's both of us together doing this. I just am the one talking to the camera. So she's heavily involved in it. So she's tired from dealing with me, but also just very excited and very grateful because we both are creatives, and this is allowing us to pursue creativity in a way we haven't been before. She's also a portrait artist, like a fine artist, and she's always worked off commissions. And so she's working through those to where she's finally going to get to like create just to create, and that's really a special place to be. So she's excited. Now my son is just pretty mad that we aren't at school with him anymore because we were at his school.
Oh, right. Yeah.
but I think he's enjoying it and understanding that it's special. And but I'm still just dad, so it's not going to be I'll never it'll never be cool.
Total change of topics, but are you ever going to do a video on Southern cryptids?
Well, that's so fun. That's a whole situation. And I think I need to collaborate with somebody from Appalachia for that, because they've really got a lock on that as well. But I love to do the Southern superstitions, like talking about Haint Blue porches. That was fun. I love to do all that stuff. I think all that is so special and so neat. And it's interesting to find out where that came from. There's so much to explore.
For those who don't know, would you explain Haint Blue? That's a concept I grew up with on the coast.
Right.
So.
See, we just think it's regular life. So this we have to give credit to the Gullah Geechee of the East Coast mostly, and that they've spread throughout. But they had a tradition of painting like shutters and door frames and porches columns with this color called Haint Blue, because it would keep haints away, because spirits don't like to cross water. You can imagine where the fear of crossing water comes from in the history of things, naturally. But then it evolved into just like a thing that ended up on people's porches, on the ceilings of their porches. So it came from this place of superstition, but then it turned into this practical thing where wasps and bugs and birds won't put their nests up on your ceiling because they think it's the sky. So it's just this whole, there's a multitude of reasons to where this color has just really taken hold of the South. And if you're in a porch on the South, if you look on the ceiling, there's a pretty good chance that you could find Haint Blue paint on the porch, because it's just a whole thing. But the history of the color is just so rich from so many different levels. But it's just a color that you just might just see every day and just know you're supposed to paint your porch that color.
Yeah, I think, that's so many traditions seem to get perpetuated that way, that it's, that's how we do it here. I don't know why I do it, but this is what we do. So I'm going to point,
right. Exactly.
paint my ceiling blue. Yeah, I was in Low Country, South Carolina a few weeks ago, and was noticing people are still painting their door frames and window frames blue. And one thing that's really interests me is that manufactured mobile homes there's this particular, I don't know if it's particular builder or what, but where the trailers come with blue doors, window frame, just manufactured that way. And I would love to know if they sell more of them, in places
good.
with the Haint Blue tradition.
That's the data we need right there. That's something we're gonna have to look into, that because that's really something. And South Carolina is really where that is a whole lot. That makes a lot of sense. That's fun.
I wonder, like, yeah, maybe in Iowa they don't sell as many of that model.
Right, like that's a fun thing to look into.
Well, okay, so here's the next question, and this, I'm gonna say, this is, I happen to know, is from my husband. He says, and this is about a phrase. He says, it takes longer to say or to write quick, that's R-I-G-H-T, quick, than simply to say quick. So why does the modifier write denote quicker?
I'm so tickled at that. It's almost in the way it feels coming out. It's like it's less about the words themselves and more about that this is the tonal language. And right quick, doesn't that sound and feel quicker than quick? I don't know. Just right quick is a little bit indicates a little bit more quick. It's like specific quick, if that makes sense. We love to specify, like might, could. You have the option to, and you might. Way more specific than just might. And right quick is quick, but it's right quick, so it's a specific kind of quick. But that's ridiculous. And wonderful all at the same time.
Here's another one from my family. I will say, my mom, Tina, wants to ask if you are familiar with the phrase that her grandmother in North Carolina used to use. She described how she liked her coffee in the morning as being black as Hetcher and strong as Agafortis. And she wants to know, is this a North Carolina thing? Have you heard this in Mississippi?
No, I cannot. I cannot attest to this because I've not heard it before. And I like wanted to look into it, and I found that you have written the article that pops up about this very question. So it's just a looping citation. So I can't speak on it, but I really like what you said about it. I think that it makes a lot of sense about the etching, and that makes a whole lot of sense.
And that's and we Hetcher, it's such an odd word. I've never encountered it anywhere else, but black as Hetcher, it makes me wonder if it's like one of those euphemisms for hell, like you say, heck.
It's that is a whole thing. And I even found out what that was called, and it fascinated me. I forgot. A minced oath is what it's called when it's a word. I know it's not such a fun phrase.
Minced oath.
A minced oath is when, like, gosh is a minced oath. It really
Uh-huh.
mean, that's the whole thing. That's super fun. But black as Hetcher and Aquafortis is so specific that it has to be that's such a Southern thing, and also specific in that it is not the original words, etching and whatever the other word was, I forgot it was called, like changed it and then just like completely owned that that's what they were. That's very specific and Southern. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gone through many generations of some people might call it corruption, others would call it what?
Beautification.
Beautification is what it is. Question from Anna, who wants to ask if you will comment on how people in the South use like body language, facial expressions, hand gestures in communication.
Well, I'm doing it just naturally. I don't know why that is the case, and that's something that I want to look into. But just would feel so restrained, not hand gesturing. But I think I mean, even when you're driving, you've got to have the finger wave or even the whole hand wave, the nodding, the attention. I don't know where that comes from, but I think it speaks to wanting to understand each other and on a general level. And also, it's just more fun. So I'm going to just file that under. Isn't this way more fun? As far as my videos go, I know that the movement in the videos of my hands is a thing that the algorithm picks up on, and it is just wild that there's little things you can do that tweak stuff. And if there's movement in the first few seconds of what you're doing, that grabs people's attention. And I don't mean to manipulate anybody ever, but there are things that work. And one of those things is hand movements and moving your body a little bit. But when you talk with your hands, you're a little bit safer and a little bit more relatable. So maybe that's what it is in our culture, even showing safety and showing relatability. But you can have a whole conversation with just your eyes and with eyebrows. And I've gotten in so much trouble, like whole lectures with just a look before for my mama, for sure.
Let me see. Okay, so Lisa says, what tradition do you have that's mostly about Mississippi? Not holidays, but something Mississippi does that other states don't do.
Well, there's just so much that I feel like Mississippi does that other states don't do. But I think that it comes down to our little festivals and stuff. Like, we will turn something into a festival. We've got the Loblolly Festival here. We've got the Watermelon Festival, the Crawfish Festival. We are a festival. We'll host and have a festival and attend one. But then the thing that I think we take it further than most places is there will be a festival queen. Like, we will have a watermelon queen and we will have a Loblolly queen. Like, that's where we take it to the next step, is like crowning someone as the queen of these said events. That's very Mississippi. We gotta make a place for big hair in the events.
And speaking of such things, I was not familiar with the tradition of mums until seeing your videos. That was totally new to me. Can you explain what that is?
That really blew my mind, because that seems like something we would very much be on top of, because it's ridiculous and it's over the top and it's like flashy and just nonsensical like that. It makes no sense. and that is right up our alley. So I think Mississippi's missing out on moms, honestly. I think that we could adopt that tradition and do very well. I think we could, seems like we could do very well at giant crafts that have no purpose. But I had to learn about it because I saw it and I was like, what in the world is this? And so I looked into it, right? And now I will say that my mom and them said, mom and them said that they used to have moms, but it was just like it's a chrysanthemum. And in Texas, they just got out of hand. Like it was like a corsage almost sort of a thing that just like really, really took off, which I fully support. Things getting out of hand in that nature, like big hair, big mums. And it's turned into these unique, if you do not know what mums are, this is your first occasion in them, you need to go Google Texas homecoming mums. They're not the mums that you order for fall that are going to die on your porch. They are elaborate costumes. It is like it's the cultural phenomenon in Texas. I've got to give it to y'all for that one. If anybody's from Texas, hats off, because this is really something. This is so Southern and nonsensical. It really is the most beautiful thing. Go look at them. They're as big as these girls. Mom's as big as these girls, and the boys will wear them on their arms, and they'll be down to there. And I had to find out, like, well, do they wear them all day at school? Does it pull on their shirts? And yes, they do. And yes, they do. And they have workarounds for it. It's an entire thing. I clearly have a lot to say about it.
It's totally new to me. That
Yeah,
I was just transfixed by those videos. Those are
fascinating.
yeah, yeah, and it really seems like something that would have caught on everywhere else,
Doesn't it?
but
Doesn't it?
so
Seems like
odd that
we'd
it
be so
hasn't
good
yet.
at that.
Yeah. Okay, so Jared, one of the viewers, I really like this question, says, how can we better encourage young Southern accented students not to repress their accents in order to, quote, make it?
Well, I think that is become an important part of what I'm doing. I didn't mean for it to be in the first place because I don't have an accent. I genuinely thought for a little while. Because there's country people that are even more country than my voice, it's a whole thing, but turns out I do have an accent. And one of the most beautiful parts of this is people saying things like, I'm now saying y'all, and I'm gonna go for it. I'm not gonna cover it up, because it's like we get to decide what the culture is, and now we're the adult, we're the big kids and we're the adults, and we get to make those decisions and say those things. And I think it's just a matter of, when you're in those of us who are in corporate situations, those of us who are in academic situations, owning that this language is valid and it is it's a cultural dialect, and that doesn't mean it is less than in any capacity. It means it's something exciting to explore, and it's flavor for what you're saying, and it's something that people should enjoy. So it's something that you don't have to be ashamed of. That is what I decided. Nobody told me I could decide that, but that's what I decided. So I hope other people decide that too. And I think the more of us that are lollygagging around and might couldn't around, the more that becomes common language. And I think that is a beautiful thing. Like I said, we get to decide.
When you were teaching, did you find that your students had different accents? I mean, people who grew up in the same place as you did, but are, a
Well,
generation
definitely.
younger.
I taught. I just the school is not the same demographic. There's lots of demographics across the school, and that is what is beautiful about it. So, and that's what's beautiful about the South. And I think that a thing that is like very valuable to be studied is how people talk about diversity all the time, but we really do live that here. This where we are is a very diverse place, and it's like a thing that you deal with every day. You interact with people, cultures that are different from yours, because cultures just over there are a different culture, and then the ones that way are a different culture. And because over here's the Baptist church and over there's the Presbyterian church, on a superficial level, that's like a whole thing. But then it goes even deeper into demographics and things like that. And I think that exposure, which is just so wild, me saying this from Mississippi when there's people from like New York and all these other places that are exposed to other cultures, but we are too here. And I think that is an important part of how I've learned to speak to people. And this idea that my culture on this road can be different from your culture on that road, and they both can be valid, and they both can be here at this same place that we are, is kind of just amplified into what this account has turned into. But it's just daily life here. So I think that's special about small towns. And I think that's special about Mississippi, because people can talk about it all day long, but here we do it. You know, when we've definitely made mistakes is a small word, you know, but in real life people are really actually living together and respecting each other. And that's my experience over my 5 years, 36 years.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me see. Timothy says, in fashion, there are trends that do not age well. What trends today, fashion or otherwise, do you predict will age poorly?
Well, fashion will get you because it comes and goes in trends and phases, right? And we went from, I remember seeing the first pair of skinny jeans and being like, that is no good, to now they're convincing us that we're not supposed to be doing skinny jeans apparently on these, you know. So it's just fashion comes in trends. But I think what stays amongst people, and when you look at fashion icons of the past and the present, the thing that we love about them is that they did it was what they wanted to do, and it was their creativity, and they expressing themselves in their way. So Princess Diana's outfit, she could put that outfit on today and be right in style with a big old sweatshirt and scrunchy socks, you know, and that comes around. But even when that wasn't in style, her vibrancy and her spirit about herself is what we remember. But then the creative people in the past, like people who've always dressed differently and who challenge those things, that's what we look at. So I think timelessness is authenticity, and like genuineness is being genuine and being authentic, and which is, I think, the key to really any sort of success on social media or in media today. Is people are very over, like, not, and they're very over inauthentic things. And I think genuine is the key to all of it, to fashion and to social media and whatever this world is that we've built on the internet.
Well, that may answer a question we got here from Scarlett, who says, what's the biggest piece of advice you've been given so far since being famous?
I don't know if you can call it famous. Actually, it was this past weekend. I was in New York City for the promo for this lingua franca thing. We went to shoot it, which sounds nuts. Saying that sounds like a nuts thing. And I got to go to a very, very fun dinner with a girl from Mississippi arranged. She's a publicist there doing insane things. And Bryn Whitfield from The Real Housewives of New York, she's on that right now. And she was at the dinner, and I got to sit beside her and speak to her. And she told me what I think is what I already knew to be the best advice, but she told me not to move the bar, and like to be grateful for everything, and that like each paycheck is special, even if it's not as big as it seemed the first time, like to remember that these things are incredible. So basically just like be in the moment and be grateful at each step and not move the bar. And I think that is, for what I'm doing specifically, going to be the key to this. I got to go to this Country Cares event in Memphis for St. Jude, and I got to meet some other influencers. And I asked every single one of them separately if they thought they'd made it, and no one said they thought they'd made it. And they were bigger influencers. A lot of them were bigger creators than me, and I thought that was very fascinating. So I think that at least right now where I am, I'm trying to learn that lesson of like being not moving the bar. It's like with the followers thing. Like at first I wanted 10, and then I wanted 100,000, and then now I'm like, it's not anywhere near a million. So it's just very easy to move the bar. So I think be glad of each accomplishment is something I need to focus on and remember.
Sounds like good advice for everybody, no matter what they're doing.
Right. No matter what
Yeah.
you're doing. It's so easy to like get caught up in the moment and not remember that you were thinking about this moment in the past, and like imagining this happening, and imagining being where you are. And even if it's stressful, just breathe and take that in. And I'm preaching to the choir because it's me that has to learn that lesson the most. But yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things in life, is to really like be present.
Mhm. Well, and speaking of such things, we are coming right up on the hour. But there is one, not so much a question as a suggestion that Mimi has sent us, which is, and this is maybe my favorite that we've received. Let's talk about mullets, says Mimi.
Didn't they sneak back in mullets snuck right back in?
Yeah. And
Believe
let's
that.
explain for people who may not know what a mullet is. I think everybody knows these days, but
Well, business in the front, party in the back. That's a mullet, right? We've got shorter hair in the front, but a party in the back. And these this kind of stuff is what makes me feel I don't feel old. But then mullets come back in style, and I'm like, well, these kids, like, what is these kids? What have they done? But they are. Didn't that sneak back in? It's
Yeah.
surprising. I'm y'all do what everybody needs to express themselves how they need to express themselves. So if you need to have a mullet, you can certainly go right ahead. I just didn't see that. I didn't forecast that in my trend forecasting. I don't know if anybody did or could have. I didn't see that coming.
If the Billy Ray Cyrus circa 1995 look was going to
Achy
come
breaky
back.
heart, like all over
Exactly.
again. Like I thought we put that down, but okay.
I did love it when fades started coming back. You started seeing
Mhm.
kids with like you know, early 90s style fades. That was so cool.
Oh yeah, and now it's the water leg pants, and I gotta say, I got me some from the Walmart the other day, and they're very comfortable, so I'm not upset about it. At least it's hard to let the skinny jeans go, but
Well, what have we've bounced all over, but what have we not covered that you'd like to add before
I feel
saying
like
goodnight?
I feel like we've got it. I just appreciate this so very much. I think my biggest takeaway from all this is that our culture is just so special. It really is just so special, and your culture, wherever you are, whoever you are, is just so special. Like our individual cultures are really, really something. And I think that as a person who studied history and as a person who is a person, I think that it's important for us to celebrate those things and be able to be at the table with each other in our different ways and be like rejoice in the difference and the uniqueness of it. I think that's the way forward, almost in like we are all the same and that we all come from very special places and we all have very special cultures, and that's what makes us similar is our differences in a weird meta sort of a way. So I think we've gone all over the place, and I can certainly ramble on forever. But you could say at this point, you could say, let me get back to my rat killing, or you could say, let me let you get back to your rat killing, which always upset me because I didn't want them to be killing the rats. But
Exactly.
or let me let you go. That's that whole thing now.
Exactly. It's a driveway conversation that lasts longer than the initial conversation did.
They do. You are not almost home. You think you are because you got out the door.
No,
Not
it's
the
just starting.
No, not at all.
Well, this has really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, will you for those who haven't been to your account, will you tell us where viewers can find your work?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is very special to me to be a part of things like this. Very, very special. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Landon Talks, just LandonTalks, just straightforward. On Instagram, I have the little verified check mark. And then on Facebook, Landon Talks as well. And on YouTube, Landon Talks a lot. I just felt very clever about that because they're longer. So I should have been continuous about it, but I just couldn't pass that up. So Landon Talks a lot on YouTube, and you'll see me in some things coming up soon, hopefully, and it'll be exciting. Let's see how far we can take this whole thing we've got.
Well, we will be watching. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.